Sure, this is Studio A, and this is where almost all the Big Star recordings were made. We started the first record in 1971 at the studio over in National, but got about halfway through and completed it here at Ardent, actually in this studio. And did Radio City in here, as well as the third album, and In Space with Jeff Powell, and the 70s albums were all done with John Fry. All the stars aligned for this thing. We had Cheryl Pavelski and Andrew Sandoval, Alec Palau. Three people just happened to come together with kind of a mutual like for the band Big Star, and were hired into positions where they could indeed put a little box set, I always call it a scrapbook, together for us, and it took about 2.5 years. John Fry was heavily involved, as was Adam Hill, John Fry being our engineer and executive producer and label head and studio owner for all three of the early 70s albums. So it was a labor of love for all of them. I actually came up with the name Keep an Eye on the Sky because at John Fry's suggestion, I went back and looked through some of the songs, song titles and lyrics, and was listening to Stroke It Noel, and actually mistook the line from that song Keep an Eye on the Sky. Well, I mistook Keepin' an Eye on the Sky for Keep an Eye on the Sky, and so I floated the idea of Keep an Eye on the Sky to everybody, and everybody liked it. And a couple of days later, John pointed out that it was actually Keepin' an Eye, but anyway, make a long story short, everybody just liked Keep an Eye on the Sky, so we stayed with that. John Fry took this cover shot, and that's out in front of Alex Chilton's home on Montgomery here in Memphis when he lived there. We were all astonished at the care and thought they all put into this package. There are a few things that might be incorrect, but for the most part, it's a great picture and story and audio story, I should say, as well as visual story of the band and how we evolved from say 1970, when Chris and Andy and I got together, through Alex joining the band, and then through the third album. So it's a 4-disc set. Maybe I'm being too long, but there's a disc that it focuses on each one of the albums. Like the first disc, of course, is #1 record, and recordings leading up to the album itself, and demos and outtakes. And then the second disc being centered on Radio City, the third being our third album, and then the fourth disc being a CD of a live performance, a Big Star live performance with, when was it? It was 74 maybe. We opened for Archie Bell and the Drells, and the funny thing about the CD is you'll hear our performance, and then you'll hear maybe 1 or 2 people clap. It wasn't, people were there to see Archie Bell and the Drells, and I don't know, it makes for an interesting performance because we're playing for people who have no idea who we are and don't seem to be interested. But it all worked out well. But here's the little portraits. The CDs go there. Here are the portraits that they used for each one of the CDs. We were also lucky in that we had some great photographers around. But we did indeed have some great photographers. Bill Eggleston, William Eggleston, became known as the father of color photography, and a guy named Michael O'Brien there's some of his photography included in this, and things from the photographers themselves, and like that came from William Eggleston's archives, Bill Eggleston's archives. And that was taken, I think, just prior to our going over to Fridays. And the shot that was taken at Fridays that wound up on the back of Radio City. But there are lots of great photographs. Everybody in the band seemed to be a photographer except for me. Bob Mayer did some of the liner notes, Robert Gordon, both Memphians, and Alec Palau added to the liner notes. Alec, I think Alec Palau may have initiated the idea for this. Alec came and spent some time at Ardent Studios going through our tape vault and putting together an Ardent record story for Ace. It's a company that's based in England. And he put all that together and in the meantime discovered all this trove of big star recordings. And, you know, I pretty much stayed out of it. I always think somebody else's perspective on what I've done or what the band has done may be a bit, may come from that point that's a bit more relevant to people into the band, and as opposed to a band member. Andy came up with some of the photographs and actually some of the recordings as well, because in some cases the 2-track recordings, I don't know if they were 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch tape recordings, were all that was left in some cases of things. So, and Andy came up with those. They also, at the same time, they were putting together Chris Bell's I'm the Cosmos Deluxe Edition. And
fantastic record.
It is awesome. It includes a second disc, and I think the first song on the second disc is a song that, it's the first song that Andy, Chris, and I, along with Steve Ray, recorded. First one I ever recorded at Ardent with them. It's kind of explores the imagination of Chris and the different versions of songs that he would come up with. And I guess Chris was a perfectionist, and no song of his ever seemed to come to completion. He would get to a point, and then maybe it was completed, but he might have a different take on it and do another version. So it includes a lot of that. Chris is just absolutely brilliant with his guitar tones and guitar line melodies and that sort of thing. But this is only available at rhino.com. That's the only place you can get it, rhino.com, and then you just you search Chris Bell. You know, it's hard to measure that sort of impact, but it just makes walking through the world of music easier with people being familiar with the band you're in. What keeps me in the mix is, you know, as one guy said, and not referring to you, mind you, it's just he's you know, what keeps Big Star relevant? And he said the songs, stupid. And it really is. They're great songs, which I didn't write, so I can talk about. But at any rate, it really is the songs, and it's the delivery and the way Alex and Chris and Andy put things together. So, and why it just it feels good to play that music. It feels good to play live. Keeps me humble. It keeps me appreciative of the bands that we work with and what they need to do and the sacrifices they make to do what they do. And you say why? We got back. Big Star broke up in '75, and we got back together in '93. And somebody said, "Well, why did you do the reunion in '93?" And it's just, well, somebody called and asked, and that's what happened. That's the results. But now the lineup's Alex Chilton, John Hour, and Ken Stringfellow, both from a group called the Posies, and myself, and you know, it's just a gas to keep doing it.